This is another one of those videos that I want to make in order to simulate something that I do in a face-to-face class. In a face-to-face class, I introduce students to this continuum of autocratic to democratic leadership styles and this offshoot, this tangent that I made up for laissez-faire, which I argue is on the democratic side, but seems to be somehow an offshoot. It's different than democratic. And so what I do is you may see down here this looks like one orange triangle with some jumbled words, but these are actually different leadership behaviors that are all stacked up on top of each other. And they're not in any particular order right now, but what I like to do with the class is, sorry about that, what I like to do with the class is move them into order. And so I'll stand in the front of the room and I'll say, okay, so let's just pick one of these and we'll think about where does this go on the continuum. And so, for example, we might start with, I'll just move these out of the way just in case. We might start with shares. And so shares is this idea of a leader who shares decision-making responsibility. In this kind of behavior, they actually will sit down with the other members of the group and talk about it and say, okay, so how do we make this decision? What should we do? And so they all work together. They all talk together to come up with a solution. And so would you say that shares sounds like it's autocratic, more on the democratic side, or more laissez-faire? I think it sounds like it's on the democratic side, Mike. Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable. It does sound like it's more on the democratic side. Would you say way over here or way over here? Okay, I won't do the voice anymore. Sorry about that. But yeah, it's sharing decisions does sound like it is pretty democratic. We can put it way over there. That sounds good. Okay, let's move on to another one. Now, selling? Let's go with telling. Where would you say that telling? So telling is where a leader makes a decision and then they just tell the other members of the group, hey, this is a decision I made, deal with it. Or, do what you're supposed to do with it. Deal with it sounds kind of mean, but you know what I mean. So anyway, so they make the decision. Does that sound like it's more autocratic, more democratic, or more laissez-faire? Oh yeah, it does seem pretty autocratic. That is, the leader is not consulting others. Oops, I gave one away. They're not like sharing with others. They are making the decisions by themselves, and that's kind of what autocratic leadership style is all about. Now, that might sound a little similar to selling. So we might ask, well, where does selling go? Does that go even farther on the autocratic side, or does that go more on the democratic side or laissez-faire? Selling is when the leader makes a decision, but then they explain it to the other members of the group in order to try to justify it and get their approval. So yeah, it doesn't sound like it's super autocratic, but it doesn't sound like it's super democratic either, because the other members of the group aren't involved in making the decision. It's not hands-off, it's not laissez-faire, because the leader is still the one who's making a decision. But it does sound like it's pretty close to tells on the autocratic side. So we'll just put that there. I'm just going to move it over a little. Yeah, that seems pretty good. We've got two more left. We've got delegates and consults. So consults, let's start there. Does that sound like, so consults is the leader gets input, has conversations with the other members of the group, gets their views on it, but then ultimately that leader is the one who makes the decision. Does that sound autocratic, democratic, or laissez-faire? Yeah, it does sound more democratic, but not more democratic than shares, because the leader is still the one making the decisions, which makes it more on the autocratic side, but it is involving the other members of the group. So you could say that they have some influence, and therefore we should probably put that kind of over here on the democratic side, but not quite as democratic as sharing the decisions. Delegates is the next thing, and so if the leader actually just says, okay, you're all working on this project, you make the decisions about the project, you don't have to bring me in on it at all. So does that sound like it's autocratic, or democratic, or laissez-faire? Laissez-faire, you say? Sure. And I can't really put it down here because it covers up other things, so I'm just going to put it over here. So yeah, if the leader delegates the decision-making authority or responsibilities, then that does sound like it's laissez-faire. It's hands-off. It gives the decision-making to the people who are involved. Okay, yeah, and so that's the end of this little video, just to try to introduce decision-making styles or leadership styles on the autocratic to democratic continuum. Thanks.